say, if I go to Russia, there is a real risk something really bad could happen, no?
That's absolutely right. Unfortunately, any American in Russia is a potential prize for Putin, and he wields that prize and gets leverage and gets things that he wants, and he uses it to thumb his nose at America. And so if you go over to Russia, you have to know that you're vulnerable to being taken under political circumstances. You'll likely be charged with bogus charges, as Evan was, as Wayland was, bogus charges of spying, which neither of them were, and there was no evidence to suggest that they were. I would also mention, though, that what hasn't been mentioned is two other people who were freed were Russian dissidents and Russian journalists, very brave journalists, who stood up against Putin, who talked in front of Putin, in front of the world, and criticized Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. They were jailed, and I really like that America and the other Western countries fought to get them released, and they weren't U.S. citizens. And so that's a positive thing that came out of this, and it's also going to inspire others in Russia to maybe stand up and know that there's hope that if they get jailed, someone will fight for them to be freed as well.
It's a good point. Let me just read you. This is what Michael McCaul, who is the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said. He said, continuing to trade innocent Americans for actual Russian criminals held in the U.S. and elsewhere sends a dangerous message to Putin that only encourages further hostage-taking by his regime. And David, you know, that's true, but there is no such thing as these magical deals where we don't give them anything and they just give us everybody back.
That's right. There's a lot to love and a lot to hate about this deal. And Congressman McCaul is right. What we should hate about it is that it is empowering Putin and it is encouraging him to do this again. And he knows that he can use this leverage again in the future to get something else that he wants, especially if we imprison another Russian, maybe a Russian oligarch who has supported the regime, or Russians who have engaged in assassinations of Americans or other Westerners. So that's the danger. We're giving him that power, and he's likely to use it until he's out of power.
But Geraldo, I was making the comparison to Israel, right? Israel makes terrible deals, right? They basically, for one soldier, they'll release, hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. For one body, they'll release dozens of Palestinian prisoners. And yet the position in Israel, and probably more so than here, is, we're going to do what it takes to get our people back.
I think let me just start by going back to the Russia situation. I think the easy fix, since the invasion of Ukraine, the easy fix is for the State Department just to officially notify all travelers to Russia that this is a very real possibility, and that we discourage this travel. You do this at your own risk. And maybe I was on a cruise ship and no one told me when I went to St. Petersburg that I was potential fodder for a prisoner exchange. I think that, if Russia's not going to be a member of the family of nations, then we should have stricter rules about access to Russia, where people become, vulnerable to getting snatched and giving, Putin someone that he could use as a bargaining chip.
Honestly, Geraldo, was that recently? Was that recently? I mean, because the notion that you of all people wouldn't know that going to Russia like now is a really terrible idea seems hard for me to believe.
It was a wonderful cruise. We stopped in Estonia, we stopped in Sweden, we stopped in Finland. We went to St. Petersburg, went to the museums, and wished of happier times, international relations. Anyway, I didn't get snatched. I've never been snatched. I've been 54 years traveling to all these funky places. And that's the choice that I make. That's what the choice that journalists make.
No, and
in terms of Israel and the disproportionate.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to say that Israel does what it has to do.
Yep. And look, Geraldo has been to just about every dangerous place in the world to tell stories. And that's part of what Evan was doing there. And I have the utmost respect for him, but I do think that there needs to be a reminder to journalists out there and everybody else, don't go. Don't go. David, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Geraldo, we're going to come back to you,
Thank you.
In a moment.